not volleyball. I think he was going to play the libero out there.
Yeah. So, as it turns out, it'll be 5-on-5 to start today's game. And Charleston Southern has the opening possession going right to left here. Take a look at our starting lineups presented by Roper St. Francis Healthcare. A three-pointer is hit by Fay, his 11th of the season.
A transfer from Eastern Kentucky. He's one of the bigger players on the floor for Charleston Southern, but he often kind of hangs out around the perimeter and is one of the guys who can knock it down from behind the arc.
Nice ball movement here for Manhattan. A little bit of a bobble on the catch by Josh Roberts. Gets it back out to Ant Nelson. Double team comes. Perez from deep. Rebound poked away from Bowser. And the putback for Josh Roberts. Meanwhile, Sean Price is down for Charleston Southern.
And that's not a guy you want to see down if you're Charleston Southern. Again, they got beat on the boards. Gave up a second chance opportunity to Manhattan, and now one of their upperclassmen leaders and a guy who can get to the free throw line, really rebounds it well for his size. Sean Price goes to the bench.
Manhattan defending full court. Charleston Southern gets it across. Fay, after the three-pointer last time down, drives, throws it hard off the glass. It comes off the front of the rim. Now Nelson has it. Hesitation dribble, backs up, takes the three. This time a clean box out for Bowser and the rebound. Husky drives and turns it over.
You know, it took me a moment to realize this, but if you look on our screen especially, I don't think I've ever seen white and gray worn on the floor at the same time. It's a little bit of a confusing uniform combo here.
A little bit is kind. That's very diplomatic of you, Jason. I noticed it right away. You know me with uniform colors.
Yeah.
It's a light gray and a white will survive. Perez gets it to Josh Roberts for the basket. The one saving grace this year, we're calling the games in person courtside. If this game had been called off a monitor like we did all of our games last year at this establishment, that would have been definitely a tough one for 40 minutes.
It's tough for the officials because generally if a team wears gray, they call them white. So what do you say today? Darker white.
Perez taps it to an open area. Nick Brennan comes up with it for the Jaspers. Perez launched from about that spot a moment ago. This time he'll move a couple paces to his left. Misses from there. Put back for Roberts off the heel of the rim. Caleb Clinton clears it for the Buccaneers. Clinton to the basket. Perez defends. It ends up in the hands of Bowser. Fay off the mark. Perez with it. Waits for everyone to head the other direction. Now finds Buchanan. And it appears as though there's going to be a blocking foul. Count the basket. The officials looked at each other and started to have conflicting calls, and this is going to end up being a block and two. Count the bucket for Buchanan.
And the official in front of the Charleston Southern bench signaled charge. Under the basket, the guy closer to the action called it a block. They looked at each other, and oftentimes one official will say, look, you had a better view, you were closer. And that's what the overrule was. They give him the basket and a free throw. And again, Manhattan killing Charleston Southern in the paint.
Buchanan normally 78% of the foul line, albeit only 7 for 9 on the season. Does not complete the three-point play. Now Clinton handling it for the Bucks. Drives, dishes. Clinton with it again. Timer hits 10. Inside to Kelly. And that's blocked by Roberts. Perez methodically up the floor. Backs his defender down. Hits Buchanan. Receives it back. Now a skip pass to the corner. Three ball good for Nick Brennan.
Just all kinds of matchup issues right now created by Manhattan against the Charleston Southern defense. They're outsized at most of the positions, even the guard spot. You saw Perez backing down Chavez and then finding an open shooter.
Chavez gives it up, now has it back. Mishandles slightly. Kelly trying to feed the backdoor cut by Fay. Instead, a turnover. Perez to Brennan. Extra pass to Roberts. Very pretty from the Jasper of Manhattan, along with Jason Kemp. I'm Kyle West. Charleston Southern will try to regroup here. The Buccaneers shooting just 1 for 6 from the floor and have compounded matters by both of the turnovers in today's game being by Charleston Southern. Another miss, this time by Price. Good to see him back out there, though, after he rolled his ankle in the first couple of minutes. He returns. Now Perez directing traffic. Brennan right back to him. Perez drives right side of the lane and finishes strong.
Now, Jose Perez is not quite as big as Hayden Brown from the Citadel, who played in the first game, but they kind of, against their opposing matchups, play the same way. Get low with broad shoulders, get to the basket, and finish through contact.
Perez with Manhattan now after transferring a couple of times. Started his career at Gardner-Webb, then ended up at Marquette. There's a block, courtesy of Buchanan, up the floor to Nelson. Strong catch and draws a foul.
Early on, you know, the size stands out when you just look at the floor at each position, and the block shot on one end and running the other way, but the speed with which that size is moving up and down the floor has been an issue early on for the Buccaneers. And this is a Charleston Southern team that's very young, and I think they have some promise among specifically a trio of freshmen, Claudel Harris Jr., Tajay Kelly, who's checking in right now, as well as Caleb Clinton, who we've seen a lot of promise, but it takes time to turn that promise into results. And they lost one of the best players in the Big South, Flanders Fleming Jr., who's now playing a big role at Florida. So not a guy that's easy to replace. He was the conference defensive player of the year last year as well.
15-3. Manhattan racing out front in the first 5 minutes. Keep in mind, Fay had the three-pointer on the first possession of the game before Manhattan even touched the ball. So since Manhattan touched the ball for the first time today, the Jaspers are on a 15-0 run. And another turnover will not help matters. That's a giveaway by Emory Knox. Now Perez with it in the front court. Bluffs a handoff to Brennan, keeps it, and draws a foul as he starts to back down his defender in Jameer Moore, and he's called for his first, team's third.
And that was the old just putting an arm bar up, and then the second hand came onto the body of Perez, and right away that's going to be an indicator that a foul needs to be called every time.
Perez directs traffic again. Defended by Knox, native of Myrtle Beach. Right along the coast, also in South Carolina. A foul on the shot. Nick Brennan attempting the three, and he'll have that many tries at the foul line now.
And on a rare opportunity where Manhattan misses a shot, what you can't do is foul that shooter, and it looked like Sean Price didn't hit him up top, but maybe got his foot under the feet and didn't allow Brennan a chance to land. And Brennan coming in, you wouldn't look at him and say that's their spot-up shooter, but he's had some good looks early on.
Came in just 6 for 23 from three-point range, 26%. 6 made threes in 9 games for Manhattan. He did come in perfect at the charity stripe until that last attempt to start this sequence. He's 1 for 2. He has a third one coming up. He was 4 for 4 at the line before this stretch. 17 straight for Manhattan. Brennan subs out. And into the game is Samba Diallo, native of Senegal. Started his career at UMass. Pressure defense again from the Jaspers.
Just aggressive man-to-man defense, and they're playing it without fouling.
Buskey finds an opening, misses the shot. Price poked it away in the backcourt from Williams for a moment. Warren Williams, the player we highlighted at the top of the broadcast. He's out there, number 0. Left wing 3. Doesn't drop for Samir Stewart. Charleston Southern looking for its first basket in essentially 6 minutes. And the Buccaneers have it. Sean Price comes through.
And that's where Price can be effective. He's not much of a spot-up shooter, but he can get to the basket, a very slasher type of player. He drives, draws contact, gets to the foul line, or finishes, and that time he finished over high hand.
Charleston Southern had missed 8 consecutive shots after the opening make by Sheck Fay. Stops a 17-0 run for Manhattan. Williams' first shot blocked. Second one is as well. It stays with Manhattan. Here's Perez. Low shot clock because neither of those attempts hit the rim. This one from Perez does. However, it falls into the hands of Buskey. Now Price fouled by Stewart coming over, and they're going to credit that as a shot.
I didn't think he was shooting, honestly,
No,
at first. And when you said that,
passing.
I thought you had said something wrong.
I know. That's why I said that, because that, yeah. That's also why I phrased it as such, credited with a shot.
I just heard somebody from the Manhattan bench saying he was going to shoot a 17-foot hook shot. I'm just going to, I'll leave it at that.
Hey, they haven't been to the shoot-around for Charleston Southern. You don't know
It
what
might
they're
be
practicing.
in the repertoire, right?
Yeah. Have you seen all of their offensive sets?
Right.
Maybe that's one of the plays they run. Price misses the first and does convert the second.
I do trust you, but I did a double take there, honestly.
Reed for 3. That rattles down.
And Romar Reed had seen limited action for the most part and then scored 15 in their last game against Utah.
Chavez, tough shot for 2. Reed racing ahead, one-on-one in transition, and a nice follow by Roberts.
Man, Josh Roberts feels like he's everywhere. And if you've watched St. John's play basketball, which is where he came from, that's kind of how they play, up and down, in a hurry. Uber athletic.
Fay, spinning, no, rebounded by Stewart. Ahead, the slam from Sambadiolo.
And they are getting up and down the floor. And sitting here courtside, I mean, it is from one end to the next in a hurry.
No let up, certainly. A 17-0 run early. And Manhattan continues to pour it on. Three-pointer is off the mark for Chavez. Perez this time holds out the palm extended to slow things down.
It was funny because the entire bench was waving him to get up for. He said, "No, let's take 5 here."
Perez sets up Stewart in the corner, rims out. Price backs it out over to Harris. That rolls off the side of the rim.
And Charleston Southern getting decent looks, but they're not getting any bounces right now on that end. Like a lid is on the basket. And they're going to need more stops at this end to give that offense a chance to heat up.
Perez out of a double team, pass deflected our direction, comes out of bounds. Where was that on the basketball? A lot of numbers you could break down, but sometimes it literally comes down to field goal percentage, and Manhattan is cruising in that regard.
Yeah, generally if you make a significant amount of shots more than the other team, it's going to work out, especially when the other team isn't hitting a bunch of threes or getting to the free throw line. And Josh Roberts again on a lob, just trying to out-athlete everybody else on the floor, will get himself a couple of free throws.
Roberts has been ahead of the team pace. He's 3 for 5 from the floor. Now heads to the line. He leads in both points and rebounds. 6 points, 5 boards already. Roberts 8 for 10 at the foul line this year. You noted came to the program via St. John's, originally out of Troy, Alabama. Went to prep school in Florida. So well traveled to arrive here for his senior year with Manhattan as he pushes the lead to 18. Didn't have to travel nearly as far to get from St. John's to Manhattan.
Oh, that's a pretty quick jaunt.
Yeah. You can make that in a day.
It's basically what Charleston Southern did to get here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. A valid point. Offensive foul whistled against Tajay Kelly, and the struggles continue for the Buccaneers. Not just the low field goal percentage of 21%, but now 4 turnovers while the Jaspers have none.
Well, and I think this became popular when COVID happened and arenas were empty last year, but you're playing the second game where the home team's not playing at one of these tournaments. There's not a ton of energy in here, but which team has had more energy than Manhattan in this building tonight from the player and bench perspective? I don't think anybody had.
Roberts commits the foul there. I agree. Manhattan has brought it out of the gate, making the trip here for 2 games in 2 days. Manhattan will play the Citadel tomorrow in the nightcap as well. Charleston Southern will quote-unquote stay in town, even though they're from Charleston, South Carolina already. They'll play South Carolina State tomorrow, all part of this Cobb, Dill, and Hammett Classic. But a neutral site game here on the campus of the Citadel, and absolutely the Jaspers have brought their own energy. Chavez to Fay. Had the initial 3-pointer to start the game, long on this try. Nelson grabs it, numbers for the Jaspers. And Nelson off the mark to Warren Williams.
Just a bit of miscommunication between Nelson and Williams, but on the other end, I thought Fay had a better look from 3 initially when he caught it, but then pump faked and took a tougher shot, and maybe right now a little bit gun shy. Some of these shooters for Charleston Southern with the Manhattan hands in their face and those athletes just right there every time. But if you have watched the beginning of this game and you know how the Citadel plays, that nightcap tomorrow is going to be up and down for a good 40 minutes, and who knows, maybe more. But there are going to be some much-needed substitutions, I would guess.
One might think the Citadel came into today averaging 83 points per game for the season. They were below that mark earlier today, falling at the hands of South Carolina State. But plenty of pace here, a lot of contact, and the whistle does come. It's a blocking foul against Nick Brennan. His first, team's third.
And yeah, it was a blocking foul called on Brennan, but again, there was a guy there, and there's always been a player there. There hasn't been a straight line drive that's been open since the game began.
And even there on the catch, Buskey immediately harassed by a double team. Now he drives, finds a little bit of space, gives it up to Price. 10 to shoot, Price all the way across the lane. Nelson stays with him step for step. Ball poked away momentarily by Buchanan, and now a foul with 2 on the timer. But that harassing defense is relentless from baseline to baseline, and especially in the front court. You're exactly right. There's never a gap between the ball and the closest defender.
And it just feels like Charleston Southern is having to work so hard just to even get a decent look at the basket, much less an open look.
Buskey inside to Kelly, lays it in. Ant Nelson taps his chest, says my bad. He was the help defender that was a half step late. Otherwise, he would have forced a turnover. Stewart on the skip pass. Up top to Nelson, lobs it in to Williams. Nice catch and finish for the big man.
Well, think about what Charleston Southern is having to do to get a look at the basket. Meanwhile, on that end, they're just lobbing it over the top to a guy who jumps higher than the other team.
Another turnover as Williams picks up the loose ball.
And you don't have to get creative or call a play if you can have a guy turn, seal his defender, and jump the help defender to lay it in.
The senior out of Kingston, Jamaica, open again. Catch, offensive board, and 2 points. And that forcing the bonus. Neither one in the bonus yet. Manhattan will be on the next Buccaneers foul. Chavez underneath had an open man, a little bit of a delay. Bowser will shoot 2 now.
And that was an opportunity that you'd love to see in and one. Now, Bowser is not known as a big scorer. Whatever you get from him is kind of a bonus. He'll clean up the glass for you and play good defense underneath, but more of a guy who is going to, pride himself on rebounding and defense and not score as much. But it had an open look underneath. You break the press, and you're going to have to take advantage of those shots. But I think the key really is, and again, it's not something they're really successful at often, is you're going to have to knock down some shots just to loosen up the defense a little bit. And if you don't, it's going to be a battle for 40 minutes.
1 for 2 for Bowser. 78% free throw shooter. 72%, beg your pardon. Reach in foul against Clinton. That puts Manhattan into the bonus.
Well, I like to ask you random questions, right?
I do know that.
So we talked about Charleston Southern. They are 333rd in the country in three-point percentage.
Mm-hmm.
Which team is last in college basketball in three-point percentage? I mean, this is pretty much a shot in the dark here, but
yeah. Let me.
You can think about it.
Yeah.
No
I guess
Googling
a conference?
is allowed.
I'm not going to Google it. I would never do that. I respect.
I'll give you a hint, though. It
Yeah.
is a state. Like, their name doesn't have state. It's literally a state. The school's name is a state.
The entire school's name?
Yes.
North Dakota?
Hey, you want to go with that, or are you just thinking of the first state?
I'm just thinking I'm thinking of universities that have the entire state in the name. That's my guess.
No.
Wyoming?
No. I mean, every state pretty much has a school if you think
How
about it.
many guesses do I get? Do I get 50? Because I bet I can
No,
get it.
I think you're done.
Oh,
the answer is Maine.
Oh, that was
Maine.
going to be my 19th guess. Well, ran out of time.
They have lighthouses there, and they're struggling to shoot the three ball.
Mm-hmm. Buccaneers pull within 18 here, just trying to find any kind of footing at all. 4 for 6 at the free throw line, only 4 for 16 from the floor. Perez leans in, draws the foul. It's on Clinton. That's his second, and Perez will shoot 2 more. He's 1 for 2 thus far.
You mentioned early on in this game sort of his journey, one of the premier players in the Big South, where he played Charleston Southern several times. You saw him give Barkley Radebaugh, the head coach for Charleston Southern, a pat on the backside as he walked by him after drawing that foul, but then went to Marquette, right? And that's what a lot of guys do now at mid-major schools. If you're good and you prove to be one of the top 3 or 4 players, you're going to say, hey, I can take this opportunity and maybe do that in the brighter lights. And he went to Marquette. The final year for Steve Wojciechowski, it didn't go the way he planned, didn't get as much playing time, suited up and played in 10 games, and ends up back at a similar level now with obviously a good fit for him, closer to his hometown, and playing pretty good basketball early in the year.
Perez from the Bronx, so right there playing for Manhattan as once again he splits. And now the shot is missed by Buskey. Manhattan wants to run again. It's Perez, steps through and puts it home.
Just a balanced attack in every way so far for Manhattan.
Buskey for 3. That stays with Charleston Southern on the baseline.
And Deontay Buskey missed pretty much all of last year with an injury, and he was a guy that was a knockdown shooter in the years prior to that, and still I think trying to get back into that rhythm game after game. But when he's on, he can be a difference maker, and he just hasn't been able to find it early on in this game.
Here he is on a drive, gives it to Chavez in the corner. Straightaway 3, doesn't go for Harris. Second chance points, though, as straightaway 3 is good for Chavez.
And there's Chavez finally getting on the board. He was one of the key players, again, transferred from Iona, scored 17 points on 5 threes in their last game, and that's a big deal for Charleston Southern when they can have somebody go off from behind the arc.
That game was against Tennessee State. That was a close game. Late comeback for Tennessee State. Roberts comes up short. Rebound for Fay, but the outlet pass goes too far. And even with his team up by 18, Ant Nelson goes crashing in to the courtside seats, knocked over 2 chairs. Just tremendous hustle every second from this Jasper squad. Now Perez wants to make it pay off, and he'll go back to the line.
Yeah, those chairs stayed down for the count, but now a young fan is going to help them up and make sure they're okay. But sacrificing the body for the good of the team.
That kid has a future in sport management. Could work in facilities. Well, maybe not. He just gave up. He put the one up, and he said that was enough. He left the other one down.
I think he saw an authority figure coming who works, at the university, at the college that he would take over.
Yeah. That's a pretty good rule of thumb.
I mean, we talked earlier about how you really don't care for rules or authority, but so you probably could, commiserate with that child who just said, you know what, you do it.
Yeah, so this person's showing up. They're going to think, I did this. I better get away and clear the scene.
Well, that guy who did it was running down the court, though. So,
but I'm not sure if the facilities guy saw that initially. Nonetheless.
All right.
Also, a good rule of thumb is, hey, this guy gets paid to do this. I'll let him do that. That way I don't mess it up.
Which is why I'm going to sit here silently for a little while and let you do it.
Manhattan by 20. Perez up top. Roberts.
A well-designed play. I think what happened was Roberts screened for the ball, and then they screened for the screener from the backside, and they just didn't communicate and pick up the switch. And, I mean, when that guy is streaking to the basket uncovered, you could see Perez, who could have taken a shot, his eyes light up in a different way and just throw it towards the rim, and Roberts has shown the ability to clean it up.
10 points, 5 rebounds. The senior leading in both categories for both teams. Points and rebounds. Perez picks up his 3rd assist on that sequence. That's a moving screen. That goes against Harris. And the turnovers now up to 7 against the Buccaneers, which doesn't sound as bad as it really is. Honestly, it's 25% of their possessions. It's been a low possession game.
Absolutely. And I think points of emphasis, you talk about it every year with every sport, but one of those is handing a ball off and then running into a defender, and that's the case of what happened there. Claudio Harris Jr. just kept on running, tried to hand the ball off to a teammate, but kept running into a defender, and that's why he picked up the offensive foul.
Fay with the rebound on the Diallo miss. Kelly in transition. An easy 2 for the Buccaneers.
There now, that adds a little bit of intrigue. Just a fun conference to watch, and this is the kind of basketball it looks like on TV, and seeing it in person, it's been impressive.
Manhattan has already begun conference play, 1 win and 1 defeat in the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference. Offensive foul here. Overtime win against Siena, and then lost a couple days later, so 1-1 in conference play. It'll be interesting to see all of these teams, really, especially from that New England area. You talk about all of the COVID implications and the impact of that, especially in the Northeast. They were just hit very hard. Some conferences didn't play at all. For Manhattan, almost the entire schedule was conference season. And they went 6-12 in conference play a year ago. 7-13 was the overall record. We'll see how they do this year. Already off to a 6-3 start, and again 1-1 in their own league. Charleston Southern trying to string together a couple of defensive possessions and turn it into offense. A foul here on Reed, and that will send the Buccaneers to the line.
Well, they've kind of figured it out defensively. They haven't given up much here of late, but you have to turn it into points on the other end, or that deficit's never going to be reduced. What do you think about the conferences that play the 2 early conference games? You like that, seeing a couple of conference matchups earlier in the year? I know the Big Ten does it. Obviously, the MAC did it, but do you enjoy that, or do you think it's better to wait and do it all as a bunch after Christmas?
I think it's just what you grew up with, so it's not necessarily that it's right or wrong.
Right.
It's just what you're most familiar with. I grew up in the Big 12 conference, that geographic region, so that was always all of the non-conference and then all of the conference. It just always shaped up that way. Lay-in is good for Sean Price to the point where the Big 12 SEC Challenge that happens in late January still feels weird to me.
Yeah.
I cannot understand playing a non-conference game in the middle of your conference slate.
It's kind of like the SEC football week where
Yeah.
they'll play the FCS schools.
Yeah. Well, they have reasons for that.
Well,
Perez
they do, but it
misses
just feels
three.
odd.
Yeah, it does. You're right on that. Here's Price to the rim, lays it in. And we don't want to overstress it, but you have to start somewhere if you're the Buccaneers. We talked about stringing a couple defensive stops together and turning it into baskets. Buccaneers have done that. Manhattan has actually taken a couple of timeouts in the last few minutes. Now Perez is fouled on his way to the bucket.
And the one way to kind of stem your own tide is to commit a foul off the ball, or not off the ball, pardon me, but away from the basket on a drive and send the other team to the free throw line for a pair. But, yeah, you talk about a 6-0 run as a small step. I mean, Manhattan had a 17-0 run earlier in the game, and it started as a 6-0 run. Actually, it started as a 2-0 run.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you just got to stack success one after another, and the team that does that more effectively wins the game.
Perez at the foul line, stretches it back to 18. I can't remember the coach, so I won't unfortunately be able to attribute it, but I remember in a football season somewhere along the way, somebody asked the coach about his 8-game winning streak, and he said we have 8 one-game winning streaks. And granted, that's coach speak, and coaches say clever things like that every once in a while, but I think there's some authenticity to that. And to your point about the run, well, we're not going to cut an 18-point deficit away right now. There's no way that's what Charleston Southern is saying in its huddle. They're saying it starts with a stop, then a basket, then another stop, then another basket.
That's right. I couldn't have said it better myself, honestly.
Oh, I think you could have. Go ahead and try.
No.
Well, everything I just said the last 45 seconds, repackage it and say it yourself.
Well, every big success starts out as small ones put together.
Oh,
Anyways,
okay.
A lot of fouls in this half all of a sudden, and you didn't jinx us in the first game for that game when you said there haven't been fouls, but clearly that was held off until the second game. Now, there has been a lot of contact, and guys have been out of position a little bit, but if you're looking at Charleston Southern, they've got 3 players with 2 fouls. Faye just picked up his second, Clinton and Jameer Moore, but other than that, they're all spread out. Like, everybody who's played has made sure to get in on the party for the most part, but you don't have anybody in egregious foul trouble.
Another turnover by the Buccaneers, having trouble with this full-court defense at times. And now Perez will throw it in from the near side. Manhattan's largest lead today has been 22. The Jaspers have a chance to match that or push it to 23. Brennan to Perez, and there it is, a 23-point lead for Manhattan, and go ahead and give Perez 13 points already.
Oh, it's tough when you can't take away something and significantly hamper the opposing offense.
Faye rattles one down.
I mean, generally you say, okay, they're lobbing it over the top, we'll take that away, and they're not going to knock down threes. But right now, whatever you're giving them, Manhattan's taking advantage of. And that's a big shot by Faye. Again, just to get Charleston Southern on the board. And now it starts on this end, stringing a few stops together.
There's a hand in a passing lane. Deflection for Price. Shot clock's at 10 here. Nelson nods his head, gets a screen from Perez. Now launches and connects.
Well, most of the time you don't like to see one-on-one basketball, but Manhattan, they'll run a set play, and if Charleston Southern thwarts that play, they just throw it to the best matchup, and they'll let Perez go one-on-one. They'll let Nelson go one-on-one. It doesn't matter. They've got an answer.
Nelson, also from the New York City area. As a pass deflected and taken away by Reed. And he gives it up to Nelson for the easy deuce.
And they were stuck on, I think it was 38 for a while.
Yeah.
And once they got unstuck, the shots just kept going in.
Yep. Price.
You know, the equipment managers talk, hey, we're
Right,
wearing alternate jerseys.
Yeah.
But today they went gray and white, and yeah, I mean, it would have been simple for Charleston Southern to say, well, we'll quick run up to Goose Creek and grab the blues.
Yeah.
But here we are, and you've handled it like a champion.
Oh, well, thank you. Kaden Casey, our producer, will record that, and we'll play that back on future broadcasts when you're not as kind.
When what?
When you're not as kind.
Oh, that never happened.
No.
Don't worry, Kyle. It's the holiday season.
It is that. Final minute of the first half here. Buskey, short. Offensive rebound to Kelly, and he scores.
You look at any moment, and it's mainly freshmen, some sophomores sprinkled in, or newcomers for Charleston Southern. Right now you've got Faye, a transfer, Kelly, a freshman, Claudel Harris Jr., a freshman, and Emery Knox, a sophomore, who just saw a little bit of time last year, so just still trying to fit pieces together. Your veterans, Price and Bowser, on the bench.
Nelson slings it to the corner, and that's a double dribble. Watson did not have a clean catch. He used a dribble to gain control. Once he did that, putting it on the deck a second time was a violation.
And sometimes you feel like I just knocked it down, and you can't remember, was that a dribble or not? And it's easy for us to watch it, but when you're in the moment, a guy's racing out to contest. Did I dribble? Did I not? He did. Twice.
Shot clock is off. Shot challenged there by Cisse. Now at the horn, Nelson.
Still think generally that's a combo you want to avoid.
Yeah, no, I wasn't endorsing it. I was just saying,
well, as
up
guys,
close and personal, I could
sure,
give it a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt.
And as players perspire a little bit more, it turns into like a light black,
there
maybe.
You go, yeah. That's probably what they were thinking. Buskey drives, misses. Rebound for Roberts. Quickly ahead to Perez. One-on-one. Looking for a foul, no call. And now the Buccaneers race the other direction. Buskey blocked out of play by Buchanan.
That's the second three-point attempt from Buskey that's been knocked away, and I think it caused him to be a little bit gun-shy later on in the first half, and it's something that happens if you have what you think is a rhythm three, and all of a sudden a guy comes flying out of nowhere to smack it out of bounds. That sticks in your head. It's like a quarterback getting hit in the pocket.
Faye launches and hits.
Well, I feel like we've had this before. Shaq Faye hitting the first shot of a half. Now Charleston Southern hoping it goes the other direction.
Yeah. They're hoping a 17-0 run may be on their side. Well, there's a defensive stop. Buskey comes up with it. Nice finish by Price on the move.
Now, normally that's where they get a lion's share of their points is in transition, but I'm not sure they want to run up and down with this Manhattan club. But in order to come back and chip away, you've got to score in a hurry. And if you keep getting stops on this end, you'll take what you can get on the other end.
Perez draws the foul this time. That's on Faye.
That's a big one.
That's his third.
He was kind of the guy who sparked the offense a little bit and has shown at least the ability to knock down a couple of outside shots in a row.
He's leading the way with 9 points, 3 for 5 from three-point range. The rest of the team is a combined 1 for 9 behind the arc. Perez makes the first attempt. As you've noted, that's not necessarily the calling card of the Buccaneers, but still it does point to the importance of him being on the floor, and he subs out right now with his third foul. And here Manhattan picks up full court at the first chance it can. Chavez quickly out of the trap, finds Price, but a turnover at the other end, and when you're pressing like that, you'll take the turnover wherever it comes in the sequence.
Yeah, sometimes you're pressing to get turnovers. Sometimes you're pressing just to run time off the shot clock and give the other offense less time to set up a play. And that time they kind of created a little bit of havoc.
Roberts fouled. He almost finished that on what would have been a tremendously athletic play. He had his back to the rim, tried to reverse jam it on the feed from Perez.
Well, you said what would have been an athletic play. Considering my level of athleticism, I'm going to call just the fact that he touched the ball and then touched the rim with it an athletic play.
Yeah, and landed with both ACLs intact. Yeah, that was pretty good. Roberts misses the first free throw.
Those guys like Roberts are really tough to defend, and I think the first guy sort of like that I can remember in the NBA was DeAndre Jordan when they had the Lob City Clippers. Like, how do you defend a guy that they just throw it up to the rim and he goes and gets it no matter where it is?
Well,
there you go.
Yeah, you don't defend that. Roberts throws it down. He forced the turnover and then cleans it up at the end of the play.
Yeah, he's been fun to watch, and the motor is endless.
He's up to 15 and 7. Price against Perez. Gives it up to Chavez. Long on the 3. Offensive rebound for Bowser. Second chance for Chavez. And a stick back for Clinton. Buchanan to Roberts. 2 more.
Just hustling down the floor. The big man made himself available on the initial drive, and he was there at the rim again.
Buskey. Roberts, another rebound. Nelson looking for Brennan on a backdoor cut. Led him a little too far.
And Barkley Radeball, the head coach for Charleston Southern, going to try basically an entirely new lineup. I'm going to keep Sean Price in the game, but the other 4 leave. And they kind of have to at this point just to stay fresh the way that Manhattan is rolling bodies out there and the pace at which they're playing.
A foul in the backcourt, and it's on Manhattan. Reed called for his second. Everyone clears out to allow Price to bring it forward. Player control foul. Kelly called for lowering the shoulder. Charleston Southern contending that was in the restricted area, but when the play initiated down there, they were already in the restricted area, so that's a player control foul.
Well, and the restricted area, a lot of people kind of forget about that. That's for the help defender. The primary defender can be there if he takes his shoulder to the chest. That restricted area comes into play on the help side when somebody rotates over.
Correct. Well said. You said that, so there to turnabout's fair play. You said what I said better that time around.
Well, you know, it's been a pleasure working with you, Kyle. We'll do it again tomorrow.
Yes, we will. 3 ball from the corner, good for Harris. And Charleston Southern shooting a little bit better, but still trailing by 24. Now 26.
Harris Jr. has been one of their bright spots early in this season for Charleston Southern. True freshman who has shown some glimpses, but that was his first bucket today from the corner.
Step back now for Harris. Loose ball foul against Manhattan, probably against Brennan.
That was a good job by Sean Price, just crashing to the basket. He wasn't going to be able to tip it in or maybe even grab it cleanly, but just by going recklessly after the basketball, he drew contact from a Manhattan player and gets to the line. This time he was not able to get off a 17-foot hook shot to get 2 free throws.
That was a great line. I'm glad you heard that in the first half. Price looking for Kelly, but Brennan pokes it away, and then a foul in the backcourt. That will go against Jameer Moore. That's
you
his
hear
third foul already.
Some good stuff from the sideline sometimes. I remember doing PA announcing at an NAIA school, and the coach, whenever there were some ticky-tack fouls, he'd say, "This isn't the 5th grade church league over at St. Mary's." They come up with some good stuff.
tell you my favorite one in just a moment here. May or may not have resulted in a technical foul. Spoiler alert, it did. Warren Williams makes the basket inside. Where did you say, what was your comment from?
NAIA basketball
Okay.
in the great state of Iowa.
That's a pretty good one. So I've got one from the plains of Kansas. Buskey to Kelly, taps it out here, and that three-pointer is good for Harris. There was a play where one player was going one direction, the other player was going the opposite direction. They both collided, the ball went out. And keep in mind, this is a very important call. This was the final minute of a close game. And it goes out of bounds. The visiting player going the way he had been charging toward the basketball. And when it went out of bounds, they gave the ball to the visiting team. They said it was last touched by the home team. This is before the ability to go back and review it in the final stages. Otherwise, I think it would have been very clear. But anyway, the coach just lost his mind, whether it was the heat of the moment or whatever. Threw in an expletive, but he said, "Come on, such and such. That's not refereeing. That's blank physics." And that was a technical, and that was kind of the deciding factor of the game as it turned out. Harris hits a three. So, yes, that's if you ever tell the official that it's not simple officiating, it's expletive physics, that is not well received, generally speaking.
Well, Claudel Harris Jr., by the way, is red hot. 4 for his last 5. He went from 0 to 11 points, and it's a 20-point game. Now, that doesn't sound great, but considering where it was, making strides in the right direction.
It's been as many as 28. There's Williams starting to heat up in his own right. He's now 4 for 6 for 8 points. Manhattan had just seen an 8-0 run put together by the Buccaneers, but that comes to an end. Now Kelly looking to start another run for Charleston Southern.
He's played a nice game as well. Kind of a quiet 8 points, but just presents himself underneath the basket. And when teammates drive, he's willing to catch and go up through contact.
Williams off the mark. Harris inbounds it for Charleston Southern. Buccaneers have trailed by as many as 28 right now, down by 20. Knox finds Buskey on the baseline. Extra pass to Bowser, but that's knocked away. Perez through the contact. He'll shoot 2.
You know, a lot of people have been commenting this year, and I noticed it as well, on the different color that the basketball looks. If you watch college basketball games, and I recently read somewhere, you'll see Perez go right into the chest of Moore and head back to the free throw line. But I read somewhere that, like, Wilson purposely changed the color to make that ball more recognizable. And there's a little bit more standardized basketballs now, but I remember hearing stories about, you know, different schools who were associated with Under Armour, Nike, using the various basketballs and that being a completely different feel for the road team oftentimes.
Yes.
I think Maryland was one of the last ones using Under Armour, and players in the Big Ten would talk about trying to practice with that ball all week, or coaches wouldn't go to certain tournaments if they were using this ball. And it's crazy how that same-sized round object can cause so many problems.
Yeah, that's a good point. Clinton drives. I do remember, over the years, all those types of stories where, especially if he can help it on a non-conference tournament. Obviously, some events are premier events. If you have an invite, you're going to go. But some of them, yes, if you had a choice, okay, we're playing with that basketball, well, we'll find somewhere else to play our 3 games in a couple of days type thing. So.
Yeah, I saw at one of the Christmas parades, which we talked about in our Thursday broadcast, there was a basketball team that I saw.
Okay.
And they had basketballs that were, like, lit up bright red on the inside. And I'm like, how did this happen? So if you know that answer, no.
You're the researcher.
It was like the remember when was it NBC tried to do the glow-in-the-dark hockey puck?
I believe it was Fox. That could have been NBC.
Did Fox have the
Fox had the NHL for a while.
Well, that didn't work.
Totally random nugget of information that would be only relevant to us. Maybe not even you, but certainly our audience probably won't care as much. But Doc Emmerich, his first ever hockey broadcast was actually on Fox. He became the preeminent voice of national hockey broadcasts on television of NBC Sports fame for the majority of it, but that is a fact. It was on Fox, and I believe that was also the time when they debuted the trail of the puck on the TV, trying to make it easier to identify back in the days of standard definition when it was very tough to see the puck on TV.
A lot of things were tough to see on TV in standard definition. But how about Jose Perez kind of taking over and doing it in a way that you don't see guards take over a game very often, just bullying his way to the basket, drawing contact. He's now 11 for 13 from the free throw line. A big night again for the leading scorer for the Jaspers.
Clinton working against Perez now, spins. That comes off the left side of the iron into the hands of Roberts, who's now 1 rebound away from a double-double. Roberts again elevating at the rim and again has to earn his points at the line.
What a pass by Ant Nelson. Coming off of the screen, just a left-handed hook pass to Roberts flashing down the lane. And as impressive as Perez has been, Roberts just kind of does it in a way that's a little bit more ooh and ah and flair to it, but he's had another big game. On the verge of a double-double.
Now has 18 points to go along with his 9 rebounds. Talk about the innovation of television there a moment ago. I remember the first time I had a TV remote that had a flashback button. I mean, you talk about think about how technology has evolved over the course of time. Sometimes we just take these things for granted. Every single college basketball game you can find somewhere on a stream, it seems, and such a high percentage of them, of course, are on ESPN Plus and everything in high definition for a TV innovation, just where technology has come during this time.
Well, I like the guide that you can get to with one button, so I know what's on.
That's
it
really
used to just be what's on 2, what's on 5. We're just going to
flip all the channels.
But also, when I used to play the old Nintendo back in the day, maybe it was just our TV, but it would be very, staticky. And for whatever reason, nobody else in my family could do it, but I would go up there and just punch the side of the TV, and it would come back like that.
Wow.
But you had to blow in the old Nintendo game disc.
I
mean, what a life we used to live.
And get the connection correct.
I walked uphill to school both ways,
and you were from Wisconsin, so it probably was in the snow.
Yep.
Perez misses. Diallo with it underneath, slings it out to the corner. 3 is strong for Nelson. Offensive foul on Price. And how about the hustle from Perez getting back defensively in position?
Yeah, one of your best players getting back there in a 24-point game and, again, laying his body on the line. We saw Nelson take out a few chairs in the front row at the end of the first half, and Perez taking contact. And I'm just thinking, as good as Perez was in the Big South, Barkley Radebaugh probably thought, great, he transferred, I'm done with him, and here he is.
Yeah, here he is, causing havoc again. Took Gardner-Webb to the NCAA tournament that year. There's a takeaway here for Charleston Southern. Harris calmly lays it in.
Harris just has a nice overall game. He can do a little bit of that on the drive. He'll knock down some shots. We saw him hit 3 threes in pretty quick succession in the first half. I think he's going to have a pretty decent college career.
Shot clock inside of 10 here for Manhattan. Nelson's 3 off. Clinton into the front court and missed to Knox on the baseline.
I got a little more trivia for you, Kyle.
Oh, good.
So Manhattan plays their basketball games in Dratty Gymnasium back in Manhattan, as it were.
As it were.
What does that gymnasium feature the largest of in the city of New York? Chew on that for a while.
How long am I supposed to chew on that?
Well, I mean, you can answer it whenever you feel like, but don't forget about your play-by-play duties while you do so. I don't want you to, take precedence over that.
Yeah.
But Dratty Gymnasium has the largest something in New York City.
Largest something in New York City.
It does.
Okay. There's a foul. There's a pass over the top. Found its way to Clinton. And so Clinton heads to the line. I don't know. Is it the largest American flag? I'm trying to think of something big you would have in a gymnasium. I guess you didn't necessarily say, but it has to be in a gymnasium. I'll guess that.
You're going to say the American flag?
Mm-hmm.
No, indoor track.
Oh, how about that?
Largest indoor track in New York City. It was also featured in an early episode of The Cosby Show. Was filmed in the gymnasium there in Manhattan.
That's a double trivia there.
I didn't ask you that one. I throw it in as a bonus. But it was filmed on the track.
I tell you what, the next time that hosting gig comes up for Jeopardy, I'm going to send your name in.
As long as Aaron Rodgers is still the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers,
you've got a chance.
I'm happy.
Ball poked away by Clinton momentarily, and it ends up going out of bounds off the Buccaneers.
Not to jinx anything, but you realize we're going to have issues if the Super Bowl is Packers-Chiefs. I mean, that
is a good point,
That
actually.
would be something
and
we'll worry about.
that would still be during the basketball season.
It would be.
That would be a problem, actually. Well, we'll try to work through it. Diallo will shoot two.
Diallo, another one of those transfers from UMass. Had a big game against Fairleigh Dickinson earlier in the year. .79% free throw shooter. Out of Senegal, makes the first. That was the 30th free throw attempt for Manhattan today. And they've been solid at the line. 24 for 30, that's 80%. Well, Diallo and Cheikh Faye from Charleston Southern from Senegal. And I think you've noticed a lot of products from African countries in college basketball. I think Louisville was the first one that had, they always had a big man in the middle that was uber athletic. Luol Deng, I think about. Marquette has one now. But they have, basketball without borders.
Clinton slams it down.
And some of the NBA Africa camp has really opened up the game, not just to Europe and Canada, but some of those incredible athletes who come over from Africa and have a big impact.
A three-pointer drained by Samir Stewart. Deep three hoisted by Harris. And a foul will create more free throw opportunities for the Jaspers. Buchanan will head to the line.
I think the word that comes to mind if you think about just what Manhattan has put on the floor today is pressure. Like offensively, they're constantly putting pressure on your defense by diving hard to the basket, throwing lobs, drawing and kicking, and then on the defensive end, they're just in your face for 30 seconds, helping, pestering drives, challenging shots, and just 40 minutes of pressure is kind of mentally overwhelming sometimes for the opposition, and they've done a really good job of coming in here and taking control of the game from the get-go.
There's been little doubt in this one. A 17-0 run, essentially right out of the gate after Charleston Southern had a three-pointer on its first possession before Manhattan touched the ball. After that, 17 straight. And Manhattan, at that point, already up by double digits. It has continued to grow over the course of the evening. Another turnover here by the Buccaneers. Largest lead has been 28. Right now sits at 25, a little bit more than 8 minutes to go. Of course, we've been talking about all of the games tomorrow to close out the Cobb Dill and Hammond Classic. After that, Manhattan returns to conference play. They will play at Fairfield on New Year's Eve. And from that point forward, it will be all opponents from the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference. 3-ball is good for Chavez.
Well, Manhattan came in here with a solid 6-3 record, and I say a solid 6-3 record because you look at their schedule, and there aren't a bunch of teams that you go, oh, that's a win when you walk into the gym. They played Fordham. They beat Fordham, pardon me. They beat Liberty. Fairleigh Dickinson, a team that's been in the NCAA tournament throughout my lifetime. They challenged themselves with Utah on the road, North Alabama, Siena, obviously a conference game. So they've played a good schedule, and it certainly paid off for them, it appears.
Stewart, that's short.
You know, it would have been interesting. This isn't a bracketed type of tournament, but if you had the winners from today play each other tomorrow.
Is in Manhattan. They're in the Bronx now. They originally were in Manhattan, but relocated to the Bronx in 1922, about 6 miles north of their original location.
But they still have the largest indoor track.
Okay, I'm not disputing that by any means. I just wanted to.
Well, that's the important part.
Yeah, all right. The integrity of the trivia.
Yeah, it must not be challenged.
Yes, okay, you're correct. You still ran a great trivia game. It was just your side note that we had to issue a slight correction.
Hold on, the side note was that the Cosby Show was filmed then.
Well, okay.
I'm starting to believe I didn't make a mistake at all. Glad I convinced myself.
Yeah. Chavez pump fake, takes a 3, short. Diallo crashes the glass and has it for Manhattan. Buchanan with the Euro step, but right there to defend it was Chavez. Stayed with him and blocks it. Assist to Harris, setting up Bowser.
Oh, it looked like Harris wanted to score. He pump faked a couple of times from outside the arc, drove to the basket, and then with another head fake, drew 2 defenders, and Bowser was there. And that's kind of his offensive game, is to get under the basket, be there, and if a guy gets in trouble, drop it off, and he'll finish.
It's a traveling violation against Buchanan. Fresh subs for Charleston Southern. Manhattan still showing a little bit of picking up in the backcourt. Now they head back, and Charleston Southern brings it across. Less than 6 minutes to go. Clinton draws a foul, and that puts the Buccaneers into the bonus. Clinton will shoot a 1-and-1. This will be the 14th free throw attempt for Charleston Southern. 47th total of the game.
Quite a few.
It's a lot. More than average.
That's fair. I hope that always is the case. The
Yes.
47 is more than average.
Yeah.
But I think this was a year where once Flanders Fleming Jr. announced he was transferring to Florida, that Charleston Southern knew that there were some things they were going to have to figure out. And you have a young core. Clinton, one of them. Claudel Harris Jr., another. Tajay Kelly. A.J. Hamrick, a freshman, not playing in the game today. But they've got guys there, and they're going to have to take some lumps, you would think, throughout this year. Now, hopefully, once you get to conference play, those lumps are in a little bit different fashion, or maybe you learn with some close losses or pull out some victories. But eventually, you like to think if you can keep that group together, which is the challenge in college basketball these days, that it pays off for you in the end.
Diallo hits a 3.
Meanwhile, Manhattan is a pretty veteran club thanks to a number of transfers in. So they certainly have designs on competing in the MAC. They were picked to finish 7th.
Bowser scores it. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It's always fun to see, especially in a neutral site game. It's just fun to see teams early on in the year and then ponder how they'll do moving forward. This is an offensive foul on Buchanan. That's his second one in the last few trips down the floor.
And I understand preseason polls, like team-wise, just to give everybody an idea on here's who the favorites should be. But the one that always gets me is the the preseason, the player of the year I kind of understand, but again, how are you going to project that? But the preseason newcomer of the year, like
yeah.
we've never seen him play a college basketball game or with this team. How do you know?
Right. Yeah.
It's just throwing darts at a board at that point.
Yeah. That's an odd kind of acknowledgement anyway. I mean, it's almost
like we think you're going to be the best new player. Yeah.
It's almost an award to the coaches like, hey, we think you brought in the best new talent in the league. But we have no idea if you have or not, but we think this will be the best of all the new players in the league. Yeah, it is kind of an odd one. Especially in today's age with the transfer portal and everything else. Some conferences still have a rookie of the year, but a lot of them, when it's tabbed as the newcomer of the year, you have players coming in from high school all the way up to fifth year, in college, and they're all newcomers to the league. And they can all at times be eligible depending, again, on all the league rules and how the coaches are voting.
The transfer portal is something else these days, though.
It has taken off in a big way and seems to be showing no signs of slowing down.
No, and I think, coaches were put in an interesting spot because of the one-time transfer rule, which pretty much allowed there to be free agency in college athletics. But also, everybody last year that would have been a senior got an extra year of eligibility. Yep. So the kids who were kind of hurt by that were the high school kids that were the incoming class.
Right.
And all of a sudden coaches are having to worry about roster management, not just in terms of having these guys, but who's going to stay for an extra year and what does that mean for the guys coming in.
Yep. Diallo, a foul on Bowser. Yeah, roster management's big, especially scholarship management, in terms of if you've already committed to a couple of incoming students and somebody stays around that you weren't expecting, how did you handle that? Coaches figure out a way to manage it, and it depends on the level of competition.
Yeah, I was
frankly,
say.
Different conferences, different coaches, you'll see far different strategies for how that roster management is handled.
I mean, the Power 5 now is almost, you're never going to have the same team back-to-back. It's like minor league baseball. Everybody's going to move on.
Yeah.
You get your one-year transfers and your five-star freshmen that are one and done. And then at this level, though, I think is where it's really become a challenge, right? If you have a good mid-major team and you recruit well, those guys are going to go, well, I'm a star here already.
Right.
If I'm going to play college basketball for another year or two, let me try it at Kentucky. Let me try it at Duke. Or even, let's try it at Wake Forest and see how we are. And so you're kind of hurt by recruiting really well. Now you have holes to fill.
There's a basket for Kelly. Yeah, and where that really plays out, especially the NCAA tournament. I mean, you think about all of those years, the old adage or cliche about, the veteran mid-major team looking to pull off the upset against the youthful, Power 5 conference. Those were a lot of those upsets. You had mid-major teams with 4 or 5 seniors, a core senior group that had played together for 4. And he adds to it. We talked, Jason, about just the speed, the athleticism. The size is obvious when everybody was warming up, and especially when you line up and you looked at all the initial matchups, that size and athleticism. I think that's played out at the foul line as well, because a game that has a 20-point margin for a lot of it, almost all of the second half, and yet Manhattan still with 39 free throw attempts. It's just been one of those games where Charleston Southern, they're playing hard, they're doing everything they can, but they're just a half step behind or a half step out of position, or sometimes just undersized, and thus a foul is committed.
Yeah, and that's been kind of the case in a bunch of their games this year. I mean, they came in allowing almost 80 points per game and allowing teams to shoot 45%. And tonight it's more of the same. They're giving up 49% shooting from the field. They're going to give up close to 100 points, and it's something they've got to straighten out. And we saw South Carolina State earlier today, and I thought they were impressive, maybe more impressive than I thought just looking at their numbers on paper. So they're going to have another challenge tomorrow, and they've got to prepare in less than 24 hours to come back out and face a good team.
Knox with that last basket, missed the foul shot. Brennan hits a three.
And one thing you can say about Manhattan is that they're going to present all kinds of problems for the Citadel as well. And Citadel's going to have to shoot better from behind the arc to, I think, keep pace with this Manhattan squad.
Deep three, nothing but net for Marquise Watson. He's a native of Brooklyn. So another one from New York City, staying close there and playing Division I basketball. And he comes in his 10th game this season and immediately cashes in with his second three. Now Diallo picks up the loose ball and a foul is committed near midcourt. Shekfei now has 4. And Diallo, just the way our live stats come in, he's all the way at the very bottom of the list of players that have played for Manhattan, so you can lose track of him. But he has literally very quietly, because did not notice, he has quietly racked up 14 points today.
Well,
nine of them
9
are at
free
the foul
throws,
line.
right.
Yeah.
I was
Now
going to
10.
say, I don't remember him scoring all that much.
I've
and
called his
all of
name a
sudden-
lot because he's been fouled a lot. But other than
Yeah.
that, yeah, 10 for 10 at the foul line as well. So a perfect night for him. So 10 points at the line, 15 points in total. He also has 7 rebounds. He almost has a double-double. And again, it's just a quirk of the way everybody's listed on the system, but he's the 12th guy listed on the live stats box score. So he's 12 of 12. He's just there at the bottom, just kind of hanging out right next to the team totals. And oh, by the way, yeah, 15 and 7 in 24 minutes.
How do they decide what order they come into the box score, I wonder?
So
I thought it was
first
order
5.
they came into the game, but that clearly isn't the case.
I'm wondering if it's different for a neutral site contest. Knox makes the free throw. This is going to blow your mind, and the people at home are just not going to understand this unless you visualize it. I don't think you can verbally communicate this very well. But the 5 starters are obviously at the top.
Right.
Then it goes by numerical. However, single digits and double digits are all categorized together.
Oh,
so in
I
other
see
words,
what you're saying.
if somebody is
1 and 12
number
or one
yeah,
after another.
1,
Yeah.
then 10, then 12, any number that begins with a 1, even if it's a double-digit number, it comes before all of the numbers that begin with 2, including single-digit 2.
I get
so
it
it's
now.
numerical, kind of.
I'm going to campaign to change that to the
Yeah, I
order they
think we
just came
should,
in the
yeah.
game, and we
Yeah.
slot them in there like that.
I don't care what you campaign for. Just anything different than this system. It is very confusing.
And you know who agrees?
Who?
Samba Diallo.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, what do I got to do?
He has number 5. So because he has number 5
Right.
and all of these
That's
other numbers that have a 1
The only
as
guy
the
who's
first
after
digit,
him.
a
But that
2 as the
doesn't
first
make
digit.
sense.
No.
Because Brennan's, he started.
He started.
You're right.
55 started. Yeah.
Man,
Boy, oh
why
boy.
is the world the way it is, Kyle?
Well, I don't know. Well, let me tell you, I have a minute and a half. It started.
Never mind. Never
oh,
mind.
oh, okay. All right.
99 for Manhattan here.
They're on the doorstep of triple digits, and they'll stay there for a moment. That
And believe
pass
it or
goes
not-
off the hands of Adam Cisse.
They haven't scored 100 yet this year.
I'll believe it since you said it. Harris gives it up to Fay. He's been pretty good from that spot. 4 for 6 from three-point range. So we'll see here if Manhattan can push it into triple digits. Matthew Glassman is subbed in for Manhattan. He gives it up here. Here's Aurora with it. Driving cut off. Glassman along the baseline. Pass deflected out of play.
You know
Catches our
what?
camera operator on the baseline.
Yeah, Sasha's been heavily
Yeah.
involved. She told me at halftime she was run over, and she asked, like, excitedly if I saw it, and I said,
Oh,
no,
no.
I'm sorry.
We will be able
It's
to
a big
identify.
moment for you, but I'd love to see the
Yeah.
replay.
I did not catch it in the first game, but we did see Sasha get hit by the deflected pass there. Tough day. Three-pointer is short for Marquise Watson.
Well, Matthew Glassman's in the game guarding the ball right now. His brother, Trevor, played at Manhattan and then transferred to Mizzou for a year. And now he's a stand-up comedian.
Wow.
We all think we are, but he's like a legit one with a website and stuff.
Is that what I need, is a website?
That's all it takes.
Why didn't you tell me that a couple years ago?
Didn't know you, to be quite frank.
The shot clock will expire here.
And they're still not going to score 100.
No. 99-75 as the ball is dribbled down. It is officially a shot clock violation, so they do have to put a little bit of time back on, and Charleston Southern will inbound it to officially allow this one to expire. 1.3 goes on the clock.
That was a sneaky move by the clock operator to try and head home a few seconds early.